The heat never truly left the little town of Dyer's Crossing, even when the sun dipped below the jagged horizon and the mesquite trees cast long crooked shadows across the two-lane road that split the place in half. By daylight, it was the kind of town you could drive through without ever knowing you'd been there, just a gas station with two busted pumps, a boarded-up diner, a feed store that hadn't restocked in a year, and a scattering of houses that leaned toward the earth like they were tired of standing. At night, though, Dyer's Crossing seemed to stretch out, to sprawl farther than it had any right to, as though the roads twisted and forked in places they never had before. People didn't talk much about that, not anymore. Ethan had no reason to stop there, but his old Ford had a different idea. The radiator gauge started creeping up not 10 miles outside town, steam hissing under the hood, and by the time he limped into Dyer's Crossing, the truck was coughing like it had something stuck in its lungs. He pulled into the gravel patch outside the gas station, and even though it was only 9 in the evening, the place looked long abandoned. The fluorescent sign buzzed weakly, casting a pale glow on the cracked pavement. The inside was lit, but dimly, like someone had put a single lamp in a room meant for 20. He stepped inside and was greeted by the heavy smell of dust and something sour underneath it, like milk left too long in the sun. Behind the counter sat an old man, thin as fence wire, his eyes hidden behind thick glasses that reflected the weak light. He didn't say hello, didn't even lift his head when Ethan walked in. He just muttered something that sounded like, "Ain't wise to be stuck here after dark." Ethan gave him a half smile, figuring it was just small-town weirdness. "Radiator's blown. You know if there's a mechanic around?" The old man shifted, bones cracking audibly as he straightened. His lips stretched into a grimace that might have been a smile once, long ago. "Mechanic's gone. Been gone. Folks who stay because they got no choice. You're just passing through, son. Best find a way to keep on." That should have been the first warning, but Ethan told himself he was tired, that people in towns like this like to spook outsiders. He bought a jug of water, figuring he could cool the truck enough to limp to the next bigger town, maybe Amarillo if he was lucky. When he asked how much, the old man just stared at him until Ethan dropped a 20 on the counter. The man didn't touch it, didn't move at all, just kept staring through the thick lenses like he could see something crawling beneath Ethan's skin, outside. The night was thicker, heavier than it should have been. The cicadas had gone silent, which struck Ethan immediately because they'd been screaming loud enough to drown his thoughts on the drive-in. Now, though, the air felt empty, dead. He poured the water into the radiator, steam billowing up and rolling across the hood like smoke. He was screwing the cap back on when he heard its footsteps. Soft, deliberate, coming from behind the gas station. He turned, expecting maybe some local kid or a stray dog, but what he saw was a figure standing just beyond the halo of the flickering sign. Tall, too tall, shoulders bent forward like it was, leaning to get a better look at him. Its arms hung long at its sides, longer than they should have been, the hands dangling past the knees. He squinted, trying to make out more detail, but the shadows seemed to cling to it, refusing to let go. "Hey," he called, voice sharper than he intended. "You need something?" The figure tilted its head, a slow, unnatural movement, and then took a step forward. That was enough for Ethan. He yanked open the truck door, dropped behind the wheel, and twisted the key. The engine groaned but caught, rattling loud enough to cover the sound of his own racing heart. He glanced in the rearview mirror, but the figure was gone. The road out of town should have been simple, a straight shot west until he hit the interstate, but after 5 minutes of driving, Ethan realized something was wrong. He hadn't passed the diner he saw earlier, hadn't seen any sign of leaving the town at all. Instead, the road wound back on itself, carrying him past the same leaning houses, the same feed store, the same gas station where the old man still sat behind the counter. By the third loop, panic was clawing at his chest. The gas gauge had dipped lower, and the headlights seemed to illuminate less and less of the road. He pulled over, engine idling rough, and stepped out just to breathe, just to tell himself he wasn't trapped in some nightmare. That's when he heard it again, the footsteps, only closer now, coming up the gravel shoulder toward him. He spun, flashlight in hand, beam cutting through the dark. It landed on the figure. Now it was clearer, though he almost wished it wasn't. Its face was smooth, stretched too tight over the skull, with hollows where the eyes should have been. Its mouth was wide, jagged, like someone had carved it too, deep with a dull blade. It didn't move when the light hit it, didn't flinch or blink, just kept coming forward with that slow, steady stride. Ethan jumped back into the truck, slammed the door, and floored it. The tires spit gravel as he tore down the road, no longer caring where it led. The figure didn't chase him, but when he risked a glance in the mirror, it wasn't behind him at all. It was ahead, standing in the center of the road, waiting. The last thing Ethan remembered clearly was the impact, the sound of metal twisting, and glass shattering as he swerved to avoid it and slammed into a ditch. After that, there were only fragments, the crunch of footsteps on broken glass, the sour smell that filled the cab, and the cold, dry hand that reached in through the shattered window to touch his face. By morning, the truck was still there, hood crumpled, driver's side empty. The sheriff from the next county over came through and called it in, but there was no body, no blood, no sign of where the driver had gone. Just a $20 bill on the counter inside the gas station, collecting dust while the old man sat, staring at the empty road with eyes that reflected nothing at all. And some nights, when the cicadas fall silent and the air goes dead in Dyer's Crossing, folks say they see headlights on the road that never arrive and a figure too tall for its own skin standing just beyond the glow, waiting for the next poor soul whose car gives out at the wrong time in the wrong place.